Welcome, Amobi. It is so great to see you again. Nice to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to get connected with you or
Aw-
reconnected.
Awesome. So we're super excited to learn more about your journey as our much of our audience who's listening in right now. We are just so keen to learn how you went from being a professional athlete with the MLS to becoming a disruptive figure in terms of how you build up financial literacy knowledge for not just athletes, but all types of folks who are looking to gain their footing and how they position themselves, how they brand themselves, and how they think about their futures. Can you just walk us through that journey from A to B and pretty much everything in between as well?
Yeah, most definitely. First generation Nigerian American, born and raised in California. Growing up, my parents being immigrants from Nigeria, education was very big, but also sports. So for me, it was always trying to use sports as a vehicle to further my career or my personal development. But fortunately, sports took over at a young age and allowed me to do a lot of things that I wasn't able or wouldn't have been able to do if I didn't get to that level. And yeah, quickly rose up the ranks and went to UCLA, ended up going pro after my freshman year. And it wasn't until like my fourth, fifth year in the league, the Broke 30 for 30 documentary came out. And that's when I don't want to say flip the switch, but it was more of a motivation to find athletes that were role models instead of the model that they showed in the Broke documentary that I could use for my own career. And that's kind of how I started being almost like a disruptor in the space. So I started a Frugal Athlete, which is an online financial media platform to help promote prudent financial practices and smart career decisions amongst professional athletes and student athletes. And that's kind of how it all went about. But I've always, grown up, strong support system. My parents always emphasized education and using sports as a vehicle instead of letting sports control you. But it wasn't until that Broke 30 for 30 documentary where I was like, all right, I kind of want to do something about it. I want to expand on my curiosities and find athletes that are doing it the right way that I could use as role models.
That's impressive. That's impressive. So you would attribute sort of the turning point in your life journey to ESPN's 30 and 30, Broke 30-30, right?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, before that, you'd see obviously the LeBron James, the Kevin Durant's, the Tom Brady, Serena Williams of the world, and those are athletes, but those are anomalies. The 1% of the 1%. And granted, I made it to the professional level, but being honest, I was gonna have to work after my career is over. Playing soccer in the States, we're not at the level of the top four leagues, but we do have a unique position in terms of the capital that we make and the ecosystem that we're a part of to leverage that. And when I saw the 30 for 30 Broke documentary, it was like, all right, you see the athletes, you use the scare tactics where, all right, you don't want to follow their footsteps. And then the athletes that they showcase on the like one offs, those are anomalies. So who are the athletes that I could kind of see that I can, grasp or are tangible to my situation that are doing it the right way? And that's kind of how it all came about.
I think that's great. I think we often talk about this, Sam and I, about just how important the role that athletes can play beyond just being a role model in the sport that they operate in. There is actually an opportunity for you to have airtime with folks who look up to you, kids who look up to you, and you could really be a mouthpiece and be affecting a lot of change. Tell me about financial literacy. Like, what does that mean for you?
No, that's a great question. I think for me, it's all about leverage. When you have clarity and leverage over your finances, you make better decisions. And I think a lot of times, specifically as athletes, where, we don't have the right information or we feel hamstrung by, different things, whether it's the natural greed or emotional blackmail or, different things that are out of our control on a personal level. But if you have full clarity of the decisions you're making and you're asking the right questions, but also the leverage to, negotiate better or to see the whole playing field, you make better decisions. And that's the same as it goes into sports, but it can be also applied to your personal finances as well.
Absolutely. I completely agree in terms of getting that leverage. Would you say that during the journey of an athlete's career from when they are youth to when they are getting scouted to when they enter the pros to when they go through the journey from being a rookie to looking out into perhaps their retirement years, the concept of financial literacy is a little different at each of these stages. I don't know if you can talk a little bit about that because
Yeah.
when you're at the peak of your career, we're just starting, the types of financial questions that come to you are a little bit different than when you're sort of cresting or when you're leaving.
No, most definitely. That's a great point that you brought up, and it's crazy too because for a lot of athletes, their first job is professional sports. You know, because you put your all into it in your youth career from the time you're 5 to 18 or 22, whenever you go pro, and that's like your first real job, your W-2. So the jump from adolescent to pro is such a vast jump, and then now you have to make adult decisions in the blink of an eye. So that alone just it it it, it makes it difficult for a lot of athletes in terms of understanding their complete financial portfolio or complete financial picture. And then depending on the different scales that you're in, you know, you hear a lot of the stats. Your career can last anywhere from 3 to 4 years. So you're like, all right, I got to make it to my second contract. I got to make it to my second contract. And then once you make it to your second contract, if you're lucky, specifically in like the bigger sports, NFL, NBA, MLB, then it's a whole nother ball game of wealth that you're talking about. And a lot of times people don't even make it to that level. So understanding where you're at specific to your situation can play a huge role in how you allocate your finances. And like you said, depending on where you're at as a rookie, to the prime of your career, to the end, all right, how are you allocating and putting money in different pockets, or how are you aggressively investing, or looking at alternative investments, or building your budget and allocating. There's so many different factors that come into play that it may seem easy from the outside looking in, like, oh, how did this player go broke after making this big contract? But you don't see all the steps in place, not only while they're playing, but before then, that laid the groundwork to unfortunate or fortunately some of the decisions that they make when they have
Totally,
money.
totally. There's like some crazy stats, right? I don't know if it came out of that documentary, but I think NFL athletes that retire, I think, I don't know, if it's like over 50% of them within 5 years have like lost the bulk of their wealth. It's some
You know,
ridiculous measure that really makes you go, whoa, okay, something has gone awry in the years, like you were saying, in their prime time leading to when they exit it. Right. And so I think a
exactly.
lot of what you mentioned just now was really just getting that perspective, right? So you can make the right decisions at the right time. And so we have listeners who are, and folks on our network that are specifically in this space, right? They may not necessarily retire, they're still there. How would you recommend folks surround themselves with the right people, the right resources, and just the right ethos to start thinking about this? Like, how did you do it, right? Who were some of the critical figures, if any, or resources that you turned to as you got educated in the space?
No, most definitely. You know, I call to people like you when it comes to specifically alternative investments. You have to have the right team, and I think the great thing about sports is that you can apply it to, you know, business life. So coming into a draft, you have college scouts that scour the earth for top talent. And not only do they scour the earth for top talent, they do background checks. And not only do they do background checks, they do interviews. And not only do they do interviews, they do all this due diligence when it comes to scouting a player and drafting a player. But when it comes to athletes and doing the same when it comes to whether it's hiring the right financial advisor or investing in the right deal as an angel or in the syndicate or a fund, they just like, oh, it sounds good, or they did this, they did that, but they don't do the same amount of due diligence that was done on them when they got drafted. So applying those principles, I think, would really work in our favor. You know, a general manager on a sports team, they're not just going to get a bunch of veterans. You know, you're going to get some high potential talent, some draft picks. You're going to get some people in their prime. You're going to get some veterans. Just like that's how you should look at an investment portfolio. Obviously, we're not going to give specific investment advice, but you know, trying to treat your investment portfolio like a general manager would. Different things like having a kitchen cabinet. So for me, early on, I really took the advice of mentors and having them on my team because they've seen a roadmap that I'm on. So obviously, at the end of the day, it's my decision, But if I could take solace in the fact that they've been there, done that, I think it's really important. Another thing is audit your team. Just like if you're on the field and you're not performing, you have an end of the year meeting to see where you need to improve on. If you're not improving, they got to find someone else. If you have a tax accountant that's not doing well, or you get, a slap on the wrist because you didn't allocate things in the right way, you might have to look to a different tax accountant. So I think using the sports terminology, and I try to emphasize sports terminologies because it's the best way to get across to athletes that we talk to, is really important as it pertains to an athlete and their financial portfolio.
I love how you talk about making sure you do the right diligence to get the right team surrounding you as it relates to your finances, much like you would with your health, your fitness, how you play the game, how you're on the field, right? We find sometimes athletes, it's a tough line between friends and someone who's working for you. And I
Yeah.
don't know if you have any advice to give. I know this we're going a little bit off here, but I think our listeners would find value in getting some advice. When you become big, you're gonna have a lot of your buddies come out from anywhere. And
Yeah.
they're gonna want to offer you all this help and everything. And how do you give advice to athletes to try to draw the line and really do that diligence that you suggested, right? Really find the best folks who are in the best place to manage your alternative asset portfolio. It's not just somebody you went to high school with and hung out with and you trust. Trust is important, but how do you distinguish that and really make the right decision there?
No, that's a great point, and I think it comes down to a few things. But at the end of the day, when it comes to working with family, friends, obviously people that have like an emotional pull to you, uh, that I would start with three things. Invest instead of gift. So if there's ways you can invest in their um, learning, so they may come to you with an idea, but what work did they do to put in the effort to present that idea? Have they gone, not saying everyone needs like to go and get an MBA, but have they put in the work to, qualify themselves? And if not, maybe they work with somebody that you're currently working with so that they can learn the ropes. Someone that's done it great is obviously LeBron James. Maverick Carter, he interned at Nike, learned the ropes from the top executives, a couple years. Once he felt established, then he went on and they did their own thing. Same with Rich Paul, interned or worked under CAA, learned enough, started his own things. Where a lot of times, athletes that we both know, it's like, oh, yeah, you got drafted, I'm coming in right away. And no, there has to be a level of hours put in because you have to see the work done. You have to, you know, do the reps and the repetition. Another thing is, and Brandon Marshall said it best, is use me, don't use me. So use me as a resource to get in the doors so that you can come back and help instead of just using me to um, deepen your pockets, whatever that looks like. And I think another thing is like, yeah, like you said, that trust factor, but also the results. At the end of the day, it's a results business. So if you can't get results, as unfortunate as it is, it's really tough to continue to move forward, no matter who it is. And then I think the last thing is just communication, making sure the OKRs are established, but the communication, the dialogue, to understand that if we get into business together, as a friend, this is strictly business. Outside of these hours, we're strictly friends. Or we're shifting our relationship from friends to strictly business. Just trying to figure that dynamic, because a lot of times things get misconstrued. Friends think they get like a couple passes because they have a level of relationship that others don't have. But when it comes to business and as an athlete, you have to treat yourself as a Fortune 500 company, and you can't afford those mistakes.
I love it. Treat yourself like a Fortune 500 company. Totally. Sammy, one.
I love that, longer term, expectations, right? I think that's great that, you're investing into people around you and they in turn are investing back to you. We talked about pro athletes. I want to jump real quick into sort of the new generation of athletes who are now, when they're in college, they're dealing with NIL, and all that comes with. So there's certainly the revenue, are coming earlier than ever. And I know, Amobi, you've talked to a lot of colleges and organizations with their group of athletes. So wanted to hear your advice to this new generation in terms of what they can do, because certainly it's a little bit different than versus the pro world.
Yeah, it's changed. It's changed the landscape really, and NIL is both a blessing and a curse, depending on how proactive you are as an athlete. And obviously, everyone's saying brand deals, brand deals, brand deals, but with NIL, you have the opportunity to do so much more than just brand deals. So I think the initial step is laying the groundwork. Getting your affairs in order. You can ruin your career before you start it if you don't have the groundwork and the framework established. So I think for any student athlete, making sure your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted is really important. But most importantly, there's understanding the two things that you can do. You can either protect your brand or you can project your brand. And not only for brand deals, but opportunities if you want to start your own business or you want to expand your network or want to figure out different ways to establish relationships. Protect ownership of your domain, making sure your social medias are clean, just different things, and understanding your alumni database or project, how are you presented socially, understanding like your sponsorships between your colleges, and if you have brand deals, what's being navigated, understanding your pillars, like what points in your mission and values you want to get across to people. So those are the two things that you can do, and if you do those things well, the rest will be set up. Will be able to be set up tremendously.
So it almost sounds like you have to be financially mature much earlier than you would otherwise, right?
Oh,
Because a
definitely,
lot of
yeah.
the other things we're dealing with are, like you mentioned, the second contract in your pro career, but now you're dealing that as a freshman in college, right? So
Yeah,
certainly
definitely.
there's a different dynamic to that where you're not able to have as much experience or as much experience around you to help you navigate that.
Exactly. Just understanding different things. We've already seen, unfortunately, young kids get exploited because they don't understand contract stipulations that they're signing. So whether it's like understanding the scope of work or exclusivity rights, different things like that, where it's like you gotta protect your brand, you gotta protect your NIL, and if you're just signing for a quick check and not understanding the long-term implications of it, like you stated, it can hurt you in the long run.
Just going back to Amobi, your platform, Frugal Athlete. Do you have any offerings right now that cater to sort of this new age of monetization that young athletes are needing to learn more about?
Yeah, so specifically with the Frugal Athlete, we do a lot of financial coaching, just helping athletes, young athletes, student athletes understand the basic principles as it pertains to your finances. We're not going to help you in terms of financial investments. We are not able to, and we do not want to get sued. But when it comes to budgeting, savings goals, emergency funds, different strategies in terms of how to invest, like the different avenues that you can take, how to audit your financial advisor, what to look for in a financial advisor. Basically, we follow our PEMDAS model, our self. How can I say it? Our self. We came up with the PEMDAS model, similar to like the order of operations in
Like
school.
a progress model, right? That you
Yeah,
work through.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have our own PEMDAS model that we go through with athletes, and that essentially helps them. So hopefully by the time they're done with us, they feel confident to go on to a wealth manager or financial advisor or accountant and build their whole financial portfolio with them. We're part of the initial stages. Outside of that, we do have content and courses, and we do workshops and speaking engagements. But specific to like taking an athlete and turning them from athlete to athlete CEO, we do that, but it's separate to a frugal athlete just to avoid conflict of interest.
Got it. Got it. That's great. This is actually a great segue. So they can come to you at Frugal Athlete and build a base for financial literacy. And actually want to start talking about the future and the horizon. And as you know, with Ludis Capital, we work with athletes and technologists and executives, and we co-invest in a number of early stage companies in what we call the sports tech space. And so we've invested across the board in media assets, fan engagement play, sports betting, gaming, you name it. So we're very excited about this space. And we think, once folks have achieved that base level of financial literacy, there's a lot of really exciting opportunities out there. And I know you've also dabbled in some things. So I'm just curious to hear, what are you excited about in the world of, I guess, investable assets?
Yeah, for me personally, this creator economy. So like, because especially with NIL athletes, they are already ahead of the game as it pertains to understanding content, understanding trends, understanding how to leverage their influence to for content. So figuring out ways to or tools or assets to enhance that. I feel like student athletes can be at the forefront of that specific space. So I'm excited about that. Definitely excited about sports tech in general as a whole, from a VR space to from a health and wellness space, everything that's enhancing performance. I'm excited about. Outside of like specific to sports and athletes, I really the CPG space, like the creator-led brands. I think that's amazing. Like you've seen what Logan Paul and KSI have done with Prime Drink. And I feel like if an athlete has a big enough, oh wow, look at that.
I've got young kids in sports, and I follow.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So if an athlete is able to create a large enough brand, um, there's so many endless possibilities, partnering with a service provider or a merch provider, apparel provider, someone that really understands that CPG space. Um, there's a lot of opportunity,
Yeah, you're actually
as I'm
hitting the
sure
nail on the
y'all
head.
see,
What's that?
as I'm sure y'all see on a daily.
Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head in terms of sort of part of our thesis is really making some strong observations around this younger generation. I think Sam and I are probably aged out here, but but for the Gen Zs, in terms of how they think about what influences their daily way of thinking and doing and purchasing and spending their free time and whatnot. And a lot of it's based on these influencers that you just mentioned, right? So there's a lot of power to be had with not just athletes, but with the younger demographic in terms of their different ways of producing content. And we see in the NIL space where you may not even need to be the top athlete at your sport and at your school, but if you have a very powerful following, you have a platform right there to make a difference as well. And so I think
Yeah,
that's a new space that we're seeing being carved out right now, and we're pretty excited about that area.
no, most
Well,
definitely.
you're
I'm
not you're
excited
not
about
aged out, Matilda, because you just showed the Prime bottle to Amobi, and that's what we were
that.
laughing at. So I just wanted to give
I
that to
earned
our
my spot
podcast.
back,
We
guys.
didn't we did not plan that at all.
We did not. That was
Just happened.
amazing.
Yeah,
Have you drank it? It's
it's
pretty
pretty good.
good.
I've only had a sample. I've never
Pretty
drank
good.
it, but
Yeah.
if Prime listens to this and they want to,
Product placement.
talk to
We're
us,
down for
yeah,
it. We're
we're
down
down.
for it. We invest in tech, but we'll do product placement as well.
Matilda, should we move on to the fire rounds? That's the fun
Yeah.
part.
This is our sort of our favorite part. So what I'm going to do is I am either going to ask a question or say a statement. Please come back with sort of the first thing that comes to your mind and a few
Okay,
sentences around that. Okay.
sounds good.
Best piece of advice someone gave you during your transition.
Ooh, fail forward.
I like. This is you're from the Bay Area. This is very almost techish of you.
Yeah, fail forward.
Feel
It's like,
fast, feel forward. Yes. Um, who are your top two mentors?
oh my goodness, that's a great question. Right now, John Harris, he's been helping me since my rookie year. CEO of AppLife, this career transition platform. And then number two, oh, this is too good. I would say Andrew Hawkins, co-founder of Status Pro, and I do some work with them. And he's like an athlete entrepreneur model roadmap. When I initially started a frugal athlete, he came top of mind, and to be now working with him in a capacity is this is really special.
Beautiful. And where do you go to find inspiration?
Oh gosh, that's good. Everywhere, LinkedIn, social media, Audible, yeah, outside, everywhere. I find inspiration everywhere. If I don't have like a notebook on me, my notes app is open, and I'm always, I have like million
Thoughts.
dollar ideas in my phone. It's now it's all about connecting with like a partner like Ludis and bringing them to life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Keep them coming. I love it. I love it. All right. What are the top 3 things a young athlete should do today in order to build their financial literacy? Top 3 things they should do.
Top 3 things, definitely establish their budget for sure. Understand what's coming in, what's coming out. If you don't have anything coming in, then just understand, the expenses that you have on a day to day. That's for sure number one. Number two, understanding the team that you need to help build your financial portfolio. A lot of times people skip steps. First and foremost, an accountant, maybe a lawyer to help you with legal issues, looking over contracts, a financial advisor, a wealth manager, a venture capital advisor, or a deal flow manager. So obviously, you don't have to have all of them at once, but understanding the team that you need to really build the portfolio that you can possibly have, not only while you're in college, but long after, whether you go pro or not. And then number 3 is building an emergency fund. I think that's really important. Whether you transition, you need that buffer to give you some runway to find your next thing.
Such wise words. Thank you.
Yep.
My goodness. Amobi, if folks and listeners want to get to know you or your services and your platform better, how can they get in touch and get in contact?
Oh yeah, always available. So www.amobiokugo.com or www.afugoathlete.com, at Amobi Says on all social platforms, Amobi Okugo on LinkedIn. Yeah, not hard to find, and I always try to get back to people. So it's all about collaborating, and yeah, I would love to figure out ways to work together.
Awesome. Wonderful.
I
Well,
love your LinkedIn post. Always words of wisdom on there.
Oh, thanks, man. Trying to grow it. Trying to grow. Appreciate you.
spoken like a true brand expert. Well, Amobi, it's been a pleasure to have you on today, and we're looking forward to seeing what collaborations we could have with you going forward.
No, most definitely. Thank you so much for giving me space and time to share, and I know we'll connect soon.
Awesome. See you soon.
Perfect. Thanks so much. All right.
Oh, that's